How's it going, everybody? It's your boy Night Owl. Today, we're going to be going over a personal favorite topic of mine in world history, the Crusades. Now, that being said, the Crusades are mired in myth and lie and exaggeration. The only real way to know the truth, absolutely, is having been there yourself. For all we know, a lot of these records could be falsified. There's been a lot of evidence that a lot of these things have been lied about in order to further the means of certain religious and political factions. But I can go on about conspiracy for days on days. Now, that being said, the Crusades themselves were a series of religious conflicts taking place between, I think it was like the late 1090s and ending around like 1270 something. And this was already after centuries of religious and political and I guess you would call it racial persecution by Islam and the Muslims. They pushed all the way from their little desert hellhole cities all the way up into Eastern and Western Europe. You ever hear the story of Count Dracula? Well, he is based off of a monarch in, believe it was Wallachia, some dude named Vlad the Impaler. I'm sure you heard of him. He strung up a whole bunch of corpses on sticks and made sure the Muslims went no further. Cool dude. Let's get into why they were actually a good thing. Why the Christians rising up against the Muslims and pushing them back was a good thing. This here is a video from Nux. He is reviewing another creator's video. We're just gonna get into it, get into the nitty gritty.
Gentlemen and female gentlemen, we are doing lore. That's right, over here on the Nuxtaku channel. Every single day we do a lore video. Today's lore is the Crusades. All right, this was literally the most requested video I get. Why the Crusades were awesome, actually. Oh boy, baby, we are doing a deep dive into this one today. So the Crusades are obviously looked at very badly in modern society, and also, to be honest, the Crusades are looked at pretty badly by Jewish people. The reason for that is because even though the Crusades was largely a defensive war of Christians against Muslim invaders, a lot of Jewish communities were murdered, like, in the crossfire of all this. So, from the perspective of the Jewish people, the Crusades were bad. But from the perspective of the Christian people, I think they were pretty justified. So, anyway, let's lock in. Let's see what we actually got here. The Crusades were awesome, actually. We're doing lore every day, new lore, and that includes history lore. That's right, we're doing history deep dives now. It was literally requested by democratic vote in my audience. So lock in, everybody. Let's see what we got.
In 2005, the film Kingdom of Heaven was released to the world.
All right.
The film takes place during the major historical conflict between the Christian world and the Islamic world that we today call the Crusades.
But I was told that literally it's the Jews that are getting Christians to think that Muslims don't like them. That's what I was told. It's pretty interesting.
Beginning in 1096, Catholic Europeans embarked on quests to retake the Holy Land and spread the faith to new areas of the globe. You would think that in a historical drama like this, we would get a fair portrayal of both sides, with the nuances of the conflict being shown. We don't. The film portrays the Christian Crusaders as bloodthirsty barbarians.
Thanks, Hollywood! Thanks, Hollywood! Very cool. And the Muslims were so good.
By the way, Kingdom of Heaven, fucking phenomenal movie, by the way. If you haven't seen it, watch it. It doesn't matter what kind of connotations they try to throw at you and the way they twist this movie around, it still makes the Christian Crusaders seem badass as hell. Like, absolutely freaking ridiculously Giga Chad badass. I love this movie. This was one of my favorite movies growing up as a child.
The Muslims, they were just people. People! Religion of peace! Never hurt! Never touched the hair on a goat's bottom. They were nothing but kind and wholesome. And those Christians, ugh! They don't like their lands getting raped? That's diabolical.
Their Islamic opponents are shown as intelligent and peaceful.
That's so funny because okay, all right. I I was gonna make an inbreeding joke, but we're not gonna do that because we're classy here on the Nuxtaku Lore channel.
Now, it should be said that Ridley Scott, the director of the film, is an atheist, so we can see why he deliberately decided to portray things this way. But regardless of Scott's motivation, the portrayal of the Crusades in Kingdom of Heaven reflects how they've been understood by a majority of Westerners for decades.
True.
Documentaries like the History Channel's Mankind, The Story of Us single out the Crusades as a uniquely evil chapter of human history.
I think of all the wars fought over religion, the Crusades belong in their own category.
It is one of the most shameful
Bro, they literally got a guy that looks like Smeagol to work on this movie?
undertakings ever embarked upon by our species.
In all of these cases, the same narrative is presented. One day, crazy Christians decided to attack the peaceful and enlightened Islamic world just because they could. The events are held as a staple of why we need separation of church and state, and why Catholicism should have no place in government. We're led to believe that if Christians have power again, they'll start unnecessary wars of religion, just like the Crusades.
It's kind of wild watching this, because, I mean, I would replace the entire Democratic Party with Catholics if I could. Like, if I had the option to just snap my fingers and swap the Democroids for Catholics, I would do it. Like, not even exaggerating.
But in reality,
I'm not even a Catholic.
there are few events in history more misunderstood than the Crusades. This is why I'm making this video. The popular understanding of the Crusades is dead wrong, and I'm here to explain why.
Alright,
in this
let's do
video, you'll be finding out why the Crusades were not only morally justified, but were actually a historic achievement.
All right.
Buckle up, because
I mean, like, look, I have to give you my perspective. I'm a Jewish guy, all right? I'm a Jewish guy. From the Jewish perspective, the Crusades had a lot of Jews killed, all right? So not trying to exaggerate. It was pretty bad for Jews, all right? Because Jews really had nothing to do with any of this. However, it was obviously a defensive war against Islamic aggression and colonialism. Like, duh. Hello?
there's a lot to cover. Let's travel back in time to 600 AD, roughly 500 years before the First Crusade. This is a map of the Christian world at that time. All the highlighted areas show where Christianity had spread and become the majority religion. Wait a minute, is that the Middle East and North Africa? Yes, it is.
True.
These two areas used to be Christian.
True. In fact, you don't even have to go back 1,500 years, bro. You don't have to go back 1,500 years to see that. In fact, Egypt and Syria and Armenia and like all these other areas, they were Christian 50 years ago. All right, I'm not even kidding. 50 years ago, they were Christian. You don't have to go back that long. I wonder what happened. I wonder what happened.
People today think of these as Muslim lands, but that was not always the case.
So interesting. How did there get so many Muslim lands? If Muslims are against colonialism, look, I'm not trying to be controversial here or anything, but if Muslims are against colonialism, how are there 56 Muslim majority countries? How did this happen? How did it spread? Armenia is still Christian? Yeah, it's still Christian. But Lebanon used to be Christian majority. Now it's only about 10% Christian. Egypt used to be Christian majority. Now it's, I think, less than 10% Christian. Syria, Iran. Did you know that Iran was a Christian country? Like, a lot of people don't know this. The only actual country in the Middle East where Christianity is actually thriving is Israel. Where Christianity increased by over 400% over the last 50 years. But suspiciously, in all these Muslim areas, the Christians are dying. I can't figure out how. They're dying. But they are. Probably through peace. Death through peace, probably. That's what I have to say. I look at all the Christians dying in Nigeria, and I can't figure out who's killing them.
It all began
all those Zoroastrians over there.
When Christianity spread far and wide after being legalized by Emperor Constantine the Great with the Edict of Milan. This led to the Christianization of both the Western and Eastern Roman Empire. Even as the western part of the empire fell to barbarians, Christianity remained, and most of the barbarians also converted. So if that happened in Europe, what happened in the Middle East and North Africa? In the mid-600s, Arab warlords sprang out of the Arabian Peninsula and began conquering everything in their path. They brought with them their own religion, Islam, and unlike European barbarians, they did not convert to Christianity. The Middle East at the time was dominated by two superpowers, the Christian Eastern Roman Empire, or the Byzantine Empire, and the Zoroastrian Sassanid Empire.
Yeah.
Unfortunately for them both, they had just fought each other in a gigantic war lasting 25 years and had drained themselves of key resources. Because of this, neither was prepared for the invasions that hit them. The Byzantines lost all of Africa and the Levant, while the Sassanid Empire collapsed completely. The most important loss for the Christian world, though, was the loss of the Holy Land. By 900 AD, Islam had expanded, by conquest, all the way to France and southern Italy. Now, I'm not going to moralize about this. Conquest and wars of expansion have been common all through history, and Islam
absolutely.
followed in that.
Anyone that goes and tries their absolute best to be like, no, actually, it's so bad that colonization happened for all of history. No people would be if you say that colonizers don't count as the new indigenous population of the land, then there are no indigenous populations of any land ever. All right.
There's a great quote that I always like to sling at people from a great game you might have heard of. I know somebody else said this, but the original way that I was fed this quote was through Call of fucking Duty. History is written by the victor. It doesn't matter who was where first or who did what first. All it matters is that you win. And then you set the course of history the way you see fit. That's why I say you can't really trust the annals of history. In any written context is hearsay because we physically were not there to witness it. We don't know the truth. All we know is the written context of somebody who could have possibly been biased.
Even the Native Americans, this is like a big thing that I always up in arms about it. And it's like, the white man is not native to America. The Native Americans are native to America. But the Native Americans have been killing each other and conquering their lands for 1,000 years before the first white man showed up in America. All right, you think that those different warring, savage, barbaric Native American tribes were like chill and stuff? Like, every time I watch a movie that has, that talks about, Native Americans, you get a nice grandpa Native American with bones in his nose, and he's surrounded by all of his granddaughter Native Americans around the fire while they do drugs and see visions. And that's beautiful. But they're also scalping each other and murdering other clans, all right? Again, I'm not saying this is a negative. That's just the reality. The reality is, none of them are indigenous to any land because they've always killed each other and conquered each other. It wasn't sunshine, rainbows, and gay sex like Disney likes us to think. I'm sorry, man. I'm sorry. I'm not doing this anymore.
That same mold. However, Islam did take things a step further with its concept of jihad, or holy...
Yeah, because in Islam, it's not just conquest for getting more land or whatever, or it was literally a holy war. Like, it literally says in the Quran that world domination is the goal of Islam. Not to be controversial or anything, but it's an actual goal.
War. Muhammad was a conqueror.
World domination and murdering and raping people that don't agree with you. You left that part out, Dux.
Who took slaves, and Islam has sought to emulate his example ever since. As a side note, this is also why slavery has always been common in the Islamic world, and
there's still slavery to this day in the Islamic world. While all the leftoids in America are posturing about actually slavery is bad, and also Islam is based because they're so nice. They're always victims of everything. That's right. Islam's the perpetual victims.
Continues to be practiced there to this very day.
They don't do it for labor purposes either. It's not like they just use these people for menial tasks. They do it as a religious superiority model. They feel entitled to do whatever the fuck they want to you because they view you as subhuman because you're not a fucking Islamic Muslim. And specifically what they do is they take Christian women and submit them into sex slavery and just generally abuse the shit out of them because they feel entitled to do it.
But regardless of the morality of the Islamic conquests, they were, nonetheless, invaders who invaded the Christian world. Christians in conquered lands were second-class citizens, and many were taken as slaves.
Yeah, so another part of Islam is there's something called the jizya tax, where essentially they would conquer lands, and they would take anyone that's not remaining as a Muslim, and they would make them basically second-class citizens in an apartheid state, which they still have to this day, by the way. And the second-class citizens would need to pay them like tribute money in order to survive. You have to understand what's actually going on. They literally would. They would pay tribute money to not literally get executed. The Christians and the Jews in all these lands.
Christian inhabitants had to pay an enormous tax called the dhimmi tax,
The dhimmis.
and their churches were often shut down.
I'm pretty sure it was called the jizya tax. They were dhimmis. The second-class citizens were called dhimmis. Jizya was the name of the tax. Very unfortunate name, but that was the name of the tax. The non-Muslim tax.
Because of Islamic policies, over the centuries, Christianity in the Middle East and North Africa shrunk from a large majority to a tiny minority. But it actually
Pretty interesting how that happened again. I wonder if it was for similar reasons.
gets even worse.
All right.
During the days of the Roman Empire, the Mediterranean Sea was a breadbasket of commerce and trade. The Romans had successfully stamped out piracy and created some of the safest waterways in the entire world. Islamic piracy brought all of this to an end. From bases in North Africa and the Middle
You mean to tell me that Muslims were pirates back in the year 1100? And you mean to tell me that the Somalis have yet to figure out any other form of business past that aside from opening quality leering centers?
East, they turned the Mediterranean into an unsafe hellhole. This crashed the European economy and made Europe a miserable place for commerce for almost 400 years.
Exactly like what the Houthis were doing now.
Islam's so-called Golden Age came at Europe and Christianity's expense. This is the true reason that many consider the years 600 AD to 1000 AD a dark age for Europe. It was literally cut off from the entire world and constantly under attack. It was in this hellish environment that Christendom finally started to have enough. The first rumblings for a crusade came in 846 when an Arabic expedition to Sicily sailed up the Tiber River and sacked St. Peter's in Rome.
Wow, that sounds like they were attacked first or something, but I'm no historian.
Synod in France called for Christian sovereigns to rally against the enemies of Christ, and the Pope, Leo IV, offered a heavenly reward to those who died fighting the Muslims. But it was around 1000 AD when things really escalated on multiple fronts. In the west, the Islamic Caliphate of Cordoba in Iberia began expanding north. It conquered,
How did it expand? It just grew itself? I feel like I'm being too sarcastic for this video. How did it expand, though? It just, like, grew? Is it like one of those toys that when you put it in water, it gets bigger? It just expanded all on its own?
burned, and enslaved its way through multiple
Enslaved?
Christian cities, including Barcelona and Leon.
Wow, that sounds to me like they started or something. Wow. It's kind of crazy how this keeps happening. It's like history repeats itself or something. It's like, bro. And then they became the victims of the crusade. It's like they attack you, they conquer cities, they're the victims. I mean, look, we don't have to go back too far. 2 years ago, they launched an attack on Israel. All right, 2 years ago from Gaza, they launched an attack on Israel, and they're the victims. You don't have to go back too far. You can go back a little bit further. 1967, they launched an attack on Israel, and they lost, and they were the victims. 1948, they launched an attack on Israel, and they lost, and they're the victims. It's pretty weird how this keeps happening.
It was this expansion campaign that finally provoked the Christian kingdoms to launch the Reconquista.
Expansion campaign. Colonialism campaign.
To retake
How
Iberia.
dare the Christians defend themselves against the poor innocent victims, the enlightened sand people?
From Islam. But if things looked rough in Western Christendom, they were even worse in the East. In the late 900s, a Central Asian Muslim group called the Seljuk Turks began migrating into Anatolia.
The Turks, eh?
In 1064, they completely conquered Armenia and sacked its capital, Ani. The city never recovered.
Yep, and then don't worry, guys. This is only the first time that the Islamic people from Turkey sack Armenia and genocide the Armenians. They decide to do this again later.
From this brutality and remains a ruin to this very day. Almost all of the Armenian population had to migrate southeast to Cilicia, creating an entire new kingdom called Cilician Armenia. In other words, Islam had made the Armenian homeland unlivable. The Turks then turned their expansion into the Byzantine Empire. They began invading western Anatolia in droves. The Byzantines tried to launch counterattacks, but were ultimately defeated at the Battle of Manzikert. After this defeat, Turks began mass migrating into Anatolia, completely altering its demographics.
You mean to tell me... Oh, God, I have to stop with the sarcasm. You mean to tell me that there was... mass migration? You mean to tell me that mass migration was a problem 1,000 years ago? And then, when they stopped mass migration, the media sphere that is pushing mass migration today says that that's actually unjustified? Wow, bro. I am literally in shock. I am literally in shock.
Yeah, it's almost as if it's the same people. The same people pushing the same things for millennia.
So the media that's trying to globalize the mass migration is talking about the Crusades, which stopped mass migration, was actually bad. I told you, 2026, year of the Crusade.
Another region of the Christian world had just become Islamic by force. Here's how historian John J. O'Neill describes the circumstances. These, then, are the major political events which prefigured the First Crusade. Within a span of 35 years, the Turks had seized control of Christian territories larger than the entire region of France, and now they were a real threat to Europe.
It's crazy how we literally just... We memory hold the Crusades into our little brains, and then we decided, nah, let's do this again. This time we'll invite them, though.
Now by this point, the Byzantine Empire realized it was incapable of stopping the Islamic hordes by itself. Emperor Alexius Comnenus made a desperate appeal to the Pope and Western Christendom for aid. This was a major deal, because Eastern and Western Christendom had been in schism for almost 50 years by this point. The Catholic Pope and the Orthodox Patriarchs did not get along, to put it lightly.
Yeah.
But the issue had become that serious that they were now willing to cooperate. What made matters even more urgent was that Turks had begun persecuting Christian pilgrims in the Holy Land. Priests like Peter the Hermit, who would become one of the greatest advocates of the Crusades, witnessed this firsthand.
Damn.
This is the geopolitical environment that led...
So all the green that you're seeing on the map, that's all Muslim countries. I don't know how it happened, because they obviously weren't colonizers or anything. They're anti-colonizers. That's what they say in the media. So I'm like, I don't know how it happened this far. I guess Muhammad was just like very inspiring or something.
led to the First Crusade being called. Now, does it seem unreasonable when you get all of this other context?
Well, you might be confused. Like, let me just show you the map. So, this, as you can see, this is all the green is Muslim countries. All right, and this over here, this is Israel. This is Israel. This little dot over here, this little thing, or this, yeah. So this is Israel, and this is the Muslim world. As you can see, they're very unhappy about this not no longer being a Muslim country.
This is what Catholic Europeans knew about Islam on the eve of the First Crusade. Muslims were enemies of Christ, they waged wars against non-combatants and enslaved women and children, and they had conquered all of Iberia, Anatolia, and threatened France and Italy. It was important that this all happened at the turn of the first millennia. By this time, the elites of Europe were finally starting to become much wealthier and better educated. They were developing a much stronger grasp of history and world
they also weren't fucking their cousins. That's a true fact. True point.
affairs. Europe was safer and more interconnected than any time since the Roman Empire.
Think of how much pedophilia was stopped by the Crusades. Like, you have to look at it from that perspective.
They were beginning to truly understand just how much damage Islam had done to the Christian world, and how much of a civilizational threat it still represented. All the pieces were now in place for the Crusades to be launched.
Oh boy, here we go.
In 1095, the moment had arrived. Pope Urban II called for the First Crusade to retake the Holy Land and drive back Islam. It would be the first of many. An excerpt from Urban's crusade speech reads, "Your brethren who live in the East are in urgent need of your help, and you must hasten to give them the aid which has been promised them. The heathens have killed many, and they have destroyed churches and devastated the Greek Empire. If you permit them to continue with impunity, the faithful of God will be much more widely attacked by them.
Oh boy.
On this account, I, or rather the Lord, beseech you as Christ's heralds to publish this everywhere, and to persuade all people of whatever rank to carry aid promptly to those Christians. Let therefore hatred depart from among you. Let your quarrels end. Let wars cease. and let all dissensions and controversies slumber.
It's so crazy to me that Europe is like sleeping right now. I don't know. Every time I watch this, translation, time to throw hands, true. No, it's crazy that every time I see this, like, I think about how, like, absolutely cucked Europe is. Like, to the point that Israel's prime minister, Netanyahu, just went out and gave a whole speech saying Christians are getting persecuted by Muslims across the Middle East. Like, we have to defend them. And it's like, this is coming from you? Like, where's the Pope? What's going on? Like, literally history's least expected, least expected patriot or something. Like,
I think like once people start to understand that all these like big monotheistic religions, these Abrahamic religions, they've all been co-opted and infiltrated by, you know, the they in every conspiracy theory, right? Whatever you want to call them. You want to call them Jesuits, you want to call them the Cabal, you want to call them the Deep State, you want to call them Zionist, whatever the fuck you want to call these people. The thing is they are a fucking hydra with many heads sticking out of many holes in this political and religious scape that we call Earth. And they're in control of a lot of things, from religion to governments to media and the news. They're fucking everywhere. And once people start to connect the fucking dots, like once people follow the tracks and realize that even though they don't see the wolves, they are surrounded, the crusade will happen again. Guarantee it.
that's wild. I was shocked when I saw that.
It's important to point out
Like,
how
the fact that you got Netanyahu talking about this and not literally any European country, it's like, bro.
Pope Urban's speech emphasized not only the defense of Christendom, but also the end of internal wars between Christian kingdoms. The Pope envisioned an international brotherhood of Catholics who fought not each other, but their external threats. In any case, the call for crusade was extremely well received. The news spread through all of Europe like wildfire.
Oh boy.
Tens of thousands of faithful Catholics all across Europe answered the Pope's call. Lowly peasants, ambitious knights, even kings. French, English, Flemish, German, people from all walks of life and all nationalities were inspired to fight for Christendom. It's not really appreciated how much of an accomplishment that this alone was. It's really something entirely unique in human history. The Catholic Church had created a multinational network that united Europeans of all stripes and ethnicities under a common faith with common goals. So many.
Yeah, why are you guys doing that now? Come on, Christians. Like, why are you guys like aligning now against like the fucking heathens? The heathen.
As every time we line up in a uniform faction, we're called Nazis and fascists and every other fucking stupid liberal slur in the book. It's, I don't want to say it's impossible to organize, but you kind of really can't without drawing a whole fucking bunch of attention and then getting infiltrated by this fucking group of people that's perpetuating, and the whole thing fucking blows up from the inside, or you guys just get smeared and slurred into fucking obscurity. Like they've essentially manufactured a space in which we cannot retaliate without fear of social outcastism. I know there's a word for that, but I'm dumb. That being said, the second we stop caring about being called these goofy little fucking names and actually start handling business, the entire scape of it all is going to change drastically.
That are ransacking your lands. Come on, Christians, what are we doing? Literally, what are we doing?
Different Europeans being united by one religion and engaging in a civilization-wide struggle had not happened before and has not happened since. Catholicism achieved what hundreds of other religions and ideologies could not. And perhaps this is why our modern secular system demonizes the Crusades.
I actually agree with this completely. I think the reason why the modern secular system demonizes the Crusades is that the Crusades fought back against exactly what the modern secular system is all for. The modern secular system is anti-God and pro-mass migration. The Crusades is pro-God and anti-mass migration. So obviously they have to paint the Crusaders as the bad guys. Obviously.
One of the
There he is, there he is. My precious, we will fight the Muslims. Yes. The Christians are cringe.
Now, did every
right,
crusade always go the best it could have gone? No, of course not. Some crusades were huge successes, like the Reconquista, while others were dismal failures, like the Fourth Crusade. But even the failures are understandable in context. Crusaders were going halfway across the world to fight unfamiliar enemies on their own home turf. The logistics of the Crusades alone were a monumental undertaking, and despite all these challenges, the Christian forces still often came out on top. The First Crusade could really only be qualified as a roaring success. Crusaders defeated almost every Muslim army they encountered and captured Jerusalem. For the first time in hundreds of years, the Holy Land was back under Christian control. The First Crusade also established Crusader states that would remain in the Middle East for another century. One crusade I personally like was the Sixth Crusade. Jerusalem had fallen back into Muslim hands, but they had started to fight each other in a civil war. Emperor Frederick II of the whole—
Yeah, so this is where like a lot of Jews were killed, because Jews lived in Jerusalem at this point. So obviously a lot of Jews were killed in this war. And again, I'm not even saying this as like a blaming the Christians or anything like that. It's just from a historical perspective, the Crusades were terrible for Jews. That's why there's always like multiple perspectives here. From the perspective of Christianity, I think it makes perfect sense to want to fight back and take your lands back and push back the invaders, you know?
Holy Roman Empire negotiated a peaceful transfer of Jerusalem back into Christian rule. Jerusalem was retaken without a single drop of blood being spilled.
That's
a
awesome.
Decisive diplomatic victory,
I didn't know that.
even if the Muslims would eventually take it back. As you can tell, during this time period, it was hard for just about anybody to hold on to Jerusalem for long. In the end, the Crusades secured Christendom's western flank and bought its eastern flank another 300 years. It wasn't until the emergence of the Ottoman Empire in the 1300s that Islam once again threatened Europe. But even when that happened, Crusaders once again went out to stop them. The Crusade of Nicopolis and the Crusade of Varna are two big examples of this. While they didn't succeed in stopping the Ottomans, they did show that Christendom was still capable of uniting to fight common threats in the name of God. And in the end, 300 years later in the 1600s, Ottoman power would be broken by what was basically a crusade. The Christian Holy League of Austria, Poland, Venice, and Russia united to defeat the Ottomans and drive them back from Europe. Despite all of this, some people say the Crusades failed. But did they? Europe was Christian when the Crusades were launched, and it's still majority Christian today, 1,000 years later. Although it is secularizing due to modernist ideologies.
Yeah.
Ironically, it's only after the Pope lost his power to call Crusades that Christianity started to decline in Europe. But when we look back—
I don't know, man. I think we could blame feminism on this one. It really is. It was like this mass feminization of humans in general that, just basically completely neutered all forms of power.
At these events, history shows it's not a shameful chapter of Catholic history.
Like, I know that feminism is a lot more recent than that kind of thing, but it was like this ideology of just neutering power, and force is bad, right? All sorts of force is bad. All shows of force are pathetic and gay. And that ideology ended up, I think, eroding a lot. Like, ultimately, you need to be powerful. You need to have strength on your side. Everyone wants to say, I want to live in a peaceful world with no wars and stuff, but it's only going to be peaceful if you are on top and you're powerful enough. You should watch 500 Crusaders defeat 40,000 Ottomans. Maybe I will. I told you, man, I'm gonna be doing a deep dive. We are going to be covering all of lore, including history now. We're a history channel now or something.
But the total opposite. The Christian world defended itself and spread the faith abroad after hundreds and hundreds of years of abuse. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is why the Crusades were awesome indeed.
Damn.
This has been Pax, and thank you so much for watching. If you
That was a great video. I'll link in the description. Yeah, no, realistically, that's pretty insane. That's pretty crazy. Yeah, no. So, anyway, again, from a Jewish perspective, I've said this the whole time. A lot of Jews were killed during the Crusades. So, from the perspective of the Jews, who really weren't involved in any of this, it was terrible. Jews ended up getting killed many, many times throughout history. But the truth is, it was a justified fight back against Islamic aggression. And any other perspective than that, in my opinion, is doing their absolute best to be dishonest. But anyway, thank you so much for being here. Strength is important. Obviously, if you don't have strength, you have nothing, because someone else will have strength and they'll destroy you. Look, man, the way I see it, if you're not on top, then someone else is. because someone's always going to be on top. So if you want to be the peaceful pacifist guy and therefore neuter yourself, that means someone else is going to have the power to control you. And realistically, unfortunately, that's just kind of how God created the world. Look, man, you read the Bible. God commanded wars. So anyway, thanks so much for being here. Appreciate you guys. Big kisses to everybody. Subscribe. Daily videos on lore, all sorts of lore, Islam lore, history lore, why African people keep starving even though we keep giving them trillions of dollars lore. See you in the next one. Bye. Likes.
That being said, he's right. If you want peace, you gotta project peace through strength. If you want those ideals, you have to be strong enough to uphold them and enforce them. But anyway, that's the video. Check out Nux. He's funny as fuck. I'll catch you on the next one.